Do you think Joe Rogan is right wing? Would you agree with that
Mm,
statement?
the problem it's a semantic question of like what does right wing even mean, I guess.
That's true. You could say that.
Yeah.
For
Also, I'm so sorry.
everything.
When I say semantic question, semantics are incredibly important. I don't think semantics are a
Oh,
yeah, but I don't think there's
yeah.
probably not going to be much disagreement on what Joe Rogan's beliefs are. It's going to be a matter of what do we consider right wing. I don't really think that even matters. I don't care. The reality is that he supported the candidate. One of the big advantages that conservative media has over liberal media is every single person in the conservative media sphere, including all of the centrists and everybody else, all of them supported Donald Trump for president. And on the left, there's not that same unifying support, and it's a huge problem, I think. It's one of the media landscape things I'm going to be working a lot to fight against or change.
Yeah, I saw that you said you were going to run a ground campaign if you could. That would be pretty interesting. This was the podcast election. I do think that that has truth to it in that old media is pretty much dead. Even they're acknowledging it. And you're certainly on the forefront. We talked about this last time. You're for better or worse, you're one of the singular individuals who are, I don't know, most influential in this regard. So
maybe, but I don't think traditional media is dead. I just think that alternative media is fighting for a lot of space now. But yeah, but I know, yeah, it's not the like
fair.
the king thing as it was before, maybe, but it's still pretty important, I think.
JJ texted me. He's pretty black-pilled right now.
Sure. Wait, I thought.
What,
Oh, JJ, never mind. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
JJ, what would you tell JJ to get him out of his new nihilism arc?
I don't know what he's black-pilled over, so depends. There are some things that are worth being
I don't know
black-pilled
that
over.
America voted for a fascist. America voted for someone who tried to lead an insurrection.
While that's factually true, it doesn't logically follow that America voted for him because they endorsed that behavior. What's more likely is they voted for him because they don't really care much about that type of stuff, or they're not even really aware of that kind of stuff because it's just not on their radar.
That's fair. I would agree with you.
You could argue that it's blackpilling that Americans don't care or that they didn't know about it, but
that's fair. So this is very centrist of you. This is very based because you're moving away from the, we have to. He's a threat to democracy fundamentally. That's what we got to hit on.
I mean, I think he is a threat to democracy fundamentally.
Well, sure.
I do wish people cared about that more.
I wish people cared about different things as well. But I guess I'm more. I think you're right. The reality is that people just don't care. And I don't know. I think a lot of it is it's all tribalism. It's not all tribalism because there are independents who would have voted either way. But the mainstay of it is it's just two fundamental different worlds. You've talked about this, right? Some people are in one right-wing echo chamber, fundamentally Fox News or Tucker Carlson and all that, and they're in a completely different world than whoever else, right?
Yeah.
Whatever the left.
But I think these worlds have become more and more separated, especially with the internet, unfortunately.
And what do you think the solution is to that?
Changing, I think
centrism, maybe building bridges.
No, I think that a huge part is changing the left media sphere. I think the left needs to stop letting the right drive so much of the conversation, and they need to be a bit more grounded in what they believe in, and they need to push and be aggressively fighting more for what they believe in. I think the right has gotten basically complete and total control over the entire media narrative.
I think it's because Kamala Harris was not apparently capable of going on Joe Rogan. Do you think that was a serious mistake?
I don't think it would have mattered much one way or the other.
Now that I say that, I don't think it would have tipped the election per se, but it was evidence of something that she's a rehearsed NPC, and Trump, for all his flaws, is at least I can tell when he's lying, right? I can't as easily tell when Kamala or
yeah, I feel like these are like I feel like these are third or fourth order issues. I think the more fundamental and important question is why does Kamala Harris need to go on Joe Rogan? I think that's the important question. Why was it that Kamala Harris couldn't win the election unless she won on a podcast that was so avowedly pro-Trump and had been for at least a year?
It was not avowedly pro-Trump.
Absolutely.
It was Trump adjacent. Sure.
I would have bet you $1 trillion. Joe Rogan literally made a tepid statement supporting RFK, and his whole fan base turned on him and was like, "Oh, Laura," and then he was like, "Oh no, I'm not endorsing RFK. I'm not endorsing RFK. I would never do that, guys." Yeah. So no, there's.
But that's different from like Charlie Kirk is avowed supporter of Trump. If you're going to describe Joe Rogan as an avowed supporter, then what words do we have left to describe Trump and cat turd?
Yeah, I don't know. This is a reality breaking moment. You're delusional if you think there was ever a world where Joe Rogan wasn't going to come out in full support of Donald Trump. Would you agree, for instance, that like probably 80% plus of his fans?
I'm not necessarily disputing that.
Sure,
but there absolutely is a world where if the candidates were different, Joe Rogan could have supported, some left-wing populists. Bernie Sanders is probably too old. That Charlie Kirk would not have supported. Joe Rogan and Charlie Kirk are fundamentally separate enough where they didn't have to.
Yeah, but we're not in that world. We're in the world where he supported the right-wing candidate, and he had been bringing on people that were supportive of the right-wing candidate, and he had been heading in that direction for a year or more. So then the question is, why is it that in order to win the election, why did Kamala need to go on that platform? Why was that so important? Something is already severely broken there. Yes. You're talking about an incumbent, essentially, or at least the vice president of the incumbent. Why does she need to be going on disfavorable media to beat a guy who already lost the last election? Like something is not working there, right? Something is fundamentally broken. So to try to break it down, like, well, she would have went on Joe Rogan, she would have been more like. I think something's already messed up. That's why I'm fighting against
to the degree. That. Fair enough, and I do think there's something to be said about organized media activity on the right wing. Like they're pretty good about that. To what degree does the left bear any responsibility in this? Do you think? Like Donald Trump won. Mm-hmm. For having a conversation about the left, which is many different individuals and many different factions. And forget the Hassan pipe. Yeah, we know Hassan and them will just say they're not for a socialist revolution, so we're not in favor of them. But I'm talking about like the Pod Save America type crew, your classic sort of liberal Kyle Kalinske type person. What did they do wrong? What did they have wrong?
So the thing that I'm talking about in terms of changing the media environment is I think that the left needs to do in-group, out-group better. The in-group right now is including too many people that are not supporting the candidate or the party. Those are the big things.
Yeah, like Hassan.
Yeah, or Breaking Points, or the Majority Report, kind of, or people like Brianna Joy Gray or Jimmy Dore, all these people who are like the left. Like all of these people need to not be considered part of the in-group of like the Democratic.
Why? Do you not think that Breaking Points and Jimmy Dore and the sort of the populist left have good points that could be adopted by the mainstream
Don't
left?
care if they have good points. The problem is that there's a lot of value in in-group, out-group signaling that the right understands. The right is very good at enforcing in-group behaviors and forcing people to become part of the out-group if they don't adopt them. So, for instance, support of Donald Trump was ubiquitous among every single right-wing media outlet and every single centrist or independent media outlet. On the left, if you were a supporter of the candidate, people kind of made fun of you. Like, even when I would go on shows, I was like, hell yeah, I'm voting for Biden. I'm riding with Biden. Or, yeah, I'm voting for Kamala. Like, even to be excited about that, I'm going to get roasted by even left-leaning media or whatever.
I think that's circumstantial. That's because Biden was a walking corpse, right?
Donald Trump is a literal authoritarian, senile dipshit who has engaged in multiple crimes, is convicted of 34 felonies, couldn't tell the difference between his wife and another woman, was held civilly liable for rape. Like, it's not even close to comparable.
But as you said, nobody cares about that, but everyone saw that Biden was a walking corpse.
Yeah, but why does nobody care about those things about Trump? It's because anytime
human nature is very just sense-oriented. If I see an old man who can barely talk, it doesn't matter what the other person says. The juxtaposition is so much so that there's no way I can vote for that person.
Yeah, and I think it's because if Donald Trump is accused of something or somebody says something about him, Donald Trump gets to run the gamut on this whole right-wing media circuit that won't hold him to account for literally a single thing. And then on the left, it's like we have to hold our own accountable and all this and all this. Well, not maybe. I mean, that's true. Like, when was the last time Donald Trump was seriously challenged on any podcast that you saw? Was he challenged on? And even this should bother you as a centrist. Do you think Donald Trump was challenged on Lex Fridman or challenged on Joe Rogan?
No, Lex Fridman lacks as much of a spine as I'd like him to have.
Well, no, because when I was on Lex Fridman, we spent an hour talking about me.
Really? You thought that was a challenging interview that Lex gave you?
He spent an hour critiquing my use of the word retarded.
Well,
Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection and didn't even ask for that.
That's not a challenging interview. I mean, like a challenging interview with like Donald Trump. I agree that first off, Donald Trump is the most boring interviewee. He dodges every question. It's so predictable. The only interesting interview I saw with him was Theo Vaughn's, where he briefly talked about like his brother was an alcoholic. I didn't know that Donald Trump had an older brother to begin with that was an alcoholic, and it's like, oh, there's a person here. That's interesting. Everything else is just dodging and shit. And like
but the only reason why he's boring to be interviewed is because nobody actually interviews him. They just want him to walk him through the talking points every time.
Sure. Well, I do think there is something to be said about. I mean, I agree. There's like a bunch of things that I think Joe could have pushed him way harder. I mean, even if you're not on this camp, like I would have liked to him.
Hold on, wait. Don't see, you're doing it right now by saying that. There are things that Joe Rogan could have pushed him way harder on. It's not that. It's that Joe Rogan could have just pushed him at all on anything. He didn't really push him on anything.
I mean, I'll be honest, I fell asleep halfway through. I was on a plane when I was listening to it, so I don't remember the whole thing. I remember the first 30 minutes, he just dodged the question.
Exactly. Yeah, he asked him over and over again, like, what was it like being president on day one? The bed was big.
Okay. Yeah. But I think it could be the case that the reason that Joe's platform is successful to begin with is precisely because he doesn't set it up as an adversarial interview. I would agree. First off, the critique that Joe Rogan just is a chameleon and just basically adopts to whatever his guest is, whether they're left or right. That's a common critique and one I share. It's frustrating to hear him not challenge all kinds of stupid shit. He does challenge
but
things.
His voter his guest list over the past year has leaned pretty heavily like big conservative or centrist, who are all conservative type people, right? And then the left wing people who are really like, we all knew nobody was surprised that Tulsi Gabbard became a Republican. Nobody was surprised. There wasn't a single human being that was surprised. RFK endorsed Donald Trump. Okay,
I didn't see that coming.
For which one?
For RFK, I would not have guessed prior that he was going to join the Trump campaign.
Would you? Well, but
I could see him. Actually, I don't know. I actually don't recall what I thought at the time. I remember being surprised.
Well, like if your choice is between that or him just remaining independent, then maybe. But he was never joining. He was never joining Biden or Harris, right?
Okay. Well, here's a perfect example, like RFK. Because like I think you are analyzing things at the level of like mechanics and like you're talking about the media ecosystem and stuff. All of that's relevant for sure. But there's a deeper issue, which is like the ideological, psychological dispute of just the underlying issues. So like I'll bring this up as an example. I don't really get stuck in this example, but like the whole, what is it? Kamala's for they, them, Biden's for you, or Trump is for you ad or whatever. What, you know, talking about that ad?
Yep.
Yeah, like on Pod Save America, they said like that ad's moved people like 2.5 points. It was like one of the most effective ads. Yep. I saw that ad and I thought this is a ridiculously stupid ad. But you know, in hindsight, apparently it's because I'm close to this. I'm kind of immersed in the online political realm, so it's like I'm like this won't convince anybody. But then I step back and go, geez, yeah, I guess people who've never seen this, if they hear Kamala saying something crazy about illegal immigrant sex changes or whatever, it's like, okay, that apparently has sway with people because that taps into a deeper underlying kind of psychological problem that people have.
Yeah, but that
is less about the right-wing media sphere.
No. That's you've got it completely backwards. But I'm sympathetic to why you have it completely backwards, because I used to as well. Because we think it's not about the media sphere, it's about these deeper ideas. But listen to what you just said. What are these deeper ideas being prodded by? By the right-wing media sphere. You're literally talking about a Trump campaign attack ad. And that's where these ideas are coming from. And it's the idea that the conservatives can set the tone so much. Why was so much of the attack on Kamala Harris successful when she spent basically no time at all talking about trans people, DEI, woke stuff?
She never disavowed it. And the mainstream left has been pushing it for like the last 10 years.
Yeah, but when we say disavow...
Joe Biden in the State of the Union talked about protecting trans kids.
That's fine. But that's one thing that he said among 4 State of the Unions or whatever, okay? So,
well, okay,
but hold on. But you say they haven't disavowed it. But like, even if you disavow it, what, you think they're going to drop that? Oh no, she disavowed it. How many times have they said she wants to take all of your guns over and over and over again? Right? Like it doesn't matter.
Correct. Like Trump disavowed white supremacists, and they still to this day repeat the lie.
Well, Trump didn't really disavow white supremacists, though. That was the issue, right?
You want to play the clip?
We can if you want to. Do you want to also look at the Proud Boys' response on Parler after he said it? Where both of the leader people tweeted, "We hear you loud and clear," standing by, and then they went on to Signal, and then they went on Signal, and then they started plotting to do their thing on January 6th, and they were the first people that broke into the Capitol. We can go through that if you want. Yeah.
Hold on. There's 2 different things. Okay. Number one, I'm talking about the Charlottesville one, which
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah.
No. You're talking about when he said "stand back" and "stand by" in his debate with Biden.
Yes, when they asked him to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they said, "Will you condemn the Proud Boys?" And he started stumbling. He was like, stand by and stand back.
Yeah.
We talked about this last time. You and I.
Yeah.
I think that hurt him. Like, why on earth would you not just straight up disavow the white supremacists?
Good question. Wait, why do you think he didn't?
Because he's an incompetent fool.
Okay. Or he enjoys support from those people and he wants to hold on to it. He doesn't want to say anything to alienate any part of his voter base ever, right?
Well, I mean, you could say the same thing about like, well, Kamala switched her messaging on Palestine and Israel depending on what state and what demographic was there. So it's like, of course, politics is you pander to whoever.
Hold on. Did she switch her message based on who she was talking to? Or are you talking about the different campaign ads that were run by the exact same PAC saying that she switched her message?
I'm talking about, correct me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong on this. My understanding was Kamala Harris had two different lines of messaging. One was like very pro-Palestine in like Michigan and I think Minnesota maybe, and then more pro-Israel in other states.
So what you're referring to is, I think it was the PAC that Elon Musk funded. They were running ads having her taking two contrary positions, depending on if they were showing it in.
It was not the Democrats running this ad that had to.
No, what would her?
I don't know. I could be wrong. I could be spewing misinformation.
Yeah, no, that is what happened. But let's just think. What would her contrary messaging be?
Problematic.
Yeah, it is problematic. Yes, but it's the conservatives doing it. They're like even in your mind, right? It's a conservative attack ad that you're thinking like, this is what Kamala Harris thinks. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, how much of Trump do you think about that has to do with left wing stuff? Like, how much of Trump's agenda or how much of your opinion of Trump is set by what the left says about him? Nothing. In fact, I bet if we were to dig into it, if I would have asked you before I just said that, you would be telling me all these things the left says about Trump. That's not true. It's not okay that they call him a Nazi. It's not okay that they call him a fascist. It's not okay, right? You'd be fighting against all of it. But then when it comes
he is a proto-fascist.
Okay, well, then that's great that you're unique there. But 99% of people would fight against all the characterizations.
Listen, you're not talking to 99% of people. Okay, you're talking to the bottom 1%.